Welcome to the 700 Club. Fire and ice. Wicked weather is sparking flames in Southern California and dumping heavy snow in the Midwest. Plus, what is called a bomb cyclone could slam into the Northwest with monster winds up to 100 miles per hour. And still in question, will high winds in New York ground the balloons for Macy's parade? Heather Sells reports on this coast-to-coast holiday travel nightmare.
It's a terrible combination of weather and travel today. More than 100 million Americans are under some kind of weather alert. Just as many are trying to get home for the big holiday.
All this weather is kind of fouling things up.
Two storm systems are scrambling travel plans for millions of people during one of the biggest travel weeks of the year. Winter storm warnings stretch from California to Michigan right now, and some last till Friday. Already a storm filled with heavy snow and high winds has wreaked havoc, whipping through Colorado, Wyoming, and Nebraska.
Woke up and thought I'd take a chance, but no dice. It's just too dicey, and thank God they closed the roads.
It forced more than 1,000 travelers to spend the night in Denver's airport after the airlines canceled close to 500 flights. That's not helping in places like Los Angeles, where almost 250,000 people are expected to pass through LAX today.
We urge the public to arrive early, to give yourself about 3 hours for domestic flights and 4 hours for international flights.
One storm system is now marching into the upper Midwest, where up to a foot of snow is possible. And on the West Coast, an even stronger storm is coming in off the Pacific Ocean. Forecasters say it's a record-setting system called a bomb cyclone and will intensify at a rapid rate. It could topple trees, knock out power, and dump snow throughout the Northwest. Already in Spokane, snow and ice led to this massive pileup involving as many as 70 vehicles. In California, people are prepared for slippery roads, and they're on edge after a wind-whipped fire in the Santa Barbara area forced thousands of people to flee. More than 4,000 acres have burned already, but there's hope that the incoming rains will help to fight the flames. Winds are also a big concern in New York, where authorities say they could threaten the giant character balloons in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
We had the same concerns last year. It's going to be a game day decision.
The severe weather comes just as more people than usual have decided to travel. AAA has predicted the second highest number of Thanksgiving travelers in over a decade. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Baby, it's cold outside. Stay home if you possibly can. Don't try to drive or fly. Stay home and eat your turkey. Well, in other news, the political scene, most Americans just wish it would go away, but no such luck. The incessant impeachment hearings grind up again next week. Here's John Jessup with that story and more from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
Thanks, Pat. The House Judiciary Committee next week will hold its first hearings to consider impeachment against President Trump. In a letter to the president, the New York chairman, Jerry Nadler, said the December 4th hearing will feature legal and constitutional experts to, quote, discuss the historical and constitutional basis of impeachment. Nadler also told the president his legal team is welcome to participate. Meanwhile, today's New York Times reports that the administration released the nearly $400 million in aid to Ukraine after, Pat, it became aware of the whistleblower report.
Well, there's some problems with the president, by the way. He was talking to Bill O'Reilly, and he tried to distance himself from Rudy Giuliani, who is his lawyer. I don't think he pulled that one off. But I tell you, this impeachment thing, when you poll the American people, most of them do not want to vote for somebody who in turn voted for impeachment. It is political suicide. And as I've said on this program many times, I believe still that they will not have a vote on impeachment. I think Nancy Pelosi, whose father was the political boss of Baltimore, she's too savvy a pal to let that thing go forward. But nevertheless, the train looks like it's running down the track, and we'll see what happens. Here's John.
Pat, momentum is shifting in the race for the Democratic nomination for president. The latest Quinnipiac University poll shows Pete Buttigieg surging, with Senator Elizabeth Warren fading fast. Buttigieg roared past Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders into second place with 16%. Meanwhile, Warren had plummeted from 28 to 14% since the last poll in October. Sanders in third place dropped 3 points to 13%, and frontrunner Joe Biden improved on his lead by 3 points. Pat climbing to 24%.
Well, you know, I said before I thought it was going to be the B&B ticket, and I think it'll be Biden and Buttigieg. But Biden has got some serious problems. And I won't go into all the psychological manifestations, but I doubt very seriously if he could handle a debate against anybody, especially as tough as Trump. But he's still the front runner in that crowd. But Warren is fading. You peak too fast, and she's peaked too fast. And the two real extremists, Warren and Bernie Sanders, are losing ground, and Pete Buttigieg is moving up, and Biden still holds the lead. So we're looking, as I said many times before, it's going to be B&B. Buttigieg, Biden and Buttigieg is the ticket for the Democrats. That's
it
what
has a nice ring to it. If you...
Well, it means bed and breakfast. I don't know what else it means. All right, John, what do you got?
Pat, turning overseas, as massive street demonstrations rock Iran, its supreme leader is blaming the United States. And although talk of regime change is getting louder, the Islamic Republic remains Israel's #1 enemy and a threat to the entire Middle East. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Beginning in Tehran and spreading throughout Iran, demonstrators have flooded the streets with shouts of death to Iran's supreme leader Khamenei and down with the regime.
This regime is extremely harsh, is extremely brutal.
Shahzavar Karimzadeh, an Iranian-born economist from London, says the regime survives through brutality, but believes outside help could make it fall.
At the moment, we got to the point that this regime is towards the end of his life. And that's why there is a need really for the help from all democratic nations, democratic governments, to help the people in Iran to get rid of this regime.
Iran blames the U.S. for the demonstrations.
We consider the support they have given as interference in Iran's internal affairs and in line with their hostile policies and maximum pressure that American officials are pursuing.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo responded.
The Iranian people are once again on the streets because of the regime's poor economic management. And instead of addressing their grievances, Tehran has responded with violence and by blaming those outside of the country. Courageous people of Iran who refuse to stay silent about 40 years of abuse by the ruling regime, I say simply this: the United States hears you, we support you, and we will continue to stand with you in your struggle for a brighter future for your people and for your great nation.
Despite its internal unrest, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warns Iran's military goals remain the same.
Iran's aggressions in our region and in front of us continues. We are taking all necessary steps to prevent Iran from settling here in the region. It also includes the activities needed to thwart deadly weapons transfers from Iran to Syria, whether by air or ground.
Israel not only faces growing Iranian threats next to the Golan Heights, but also from Lebanon by Iran's proxy Hezbollah. After Iran's recent attack against Saudi Arabia, the U.S. commander in the Middle East, General Kenneth McKenzie, issued this warning and said, "In my judgment, it is very possible that Iran will attack again." So while Iran fights internal dissent, it remains a menace in the region and may mean another showdown is looming in the Middle East. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Pat, some disturbing scenes playing out there in Iran.
I think that regime is on the verge of being overthrown. The people hate the mullahs. That theocratic regime has been repressive, and it does not enjoy the support of the Iranian people. But those people do need some help. And I don't know if it's any way we could surreptitiously get weapons in there for them or some kind of aid. But something has got to be done from overseas to help the pro-democracy demonstrators, because we're right at the cusp of a very important regime change if it can be pushed over the edge. Those mullahs cannot hold on anymore. The people are against them, and all they need is a little push. I mean, somebody from outside to give them a little bit of help. And we certainly don't want to get our hand on it, because if it looks like America's doing it, then it'll hurt the cause. But if there's any way quietly that the free nations can slip some help to those Iranian demonstrators, that regime will fall and it will bring peace to the Middle East that is so important right now. Well, there's another group called the Uyghurs. They're a group of Muslims inside of China, and there has been a campaign that is unbelievable. Looks like what went on during the concentration camps of Adolf Hitler. John has more about that.
Pat, hundreds of leaked documents provide evidence that the Chinese government is repressing Muslims and other religious minorities on a massive scale. It's happening in the Xinjiang province in western China, where authorities have imprisoned some 1 million people in detention camps. Beijing claims the camps are for voluntary job training, but the documents show their true purpose is to re-educate and retrain people to fit into China's communist system. They also show that China is using high-tech surveillance methods to monitor and target people for arrest. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told reporters the documents prove that China is repressing its people.
Very significant human rights abuses. I think it confirms it, shows that it's not random and it is intentional and that it is ongoing. And so I think those papers simply confirm that. I think the world can see that.
Secretary Pompeo also said world leaders should join the United States in working to create an atmosphere to improve the human rights situation in western China. Well, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch addressed the dangers of unchecked government in a recent interview with CBN News. Speaking with our Jennifer Wishon, Justice Gorsuch emphasized the importance of the separation of powers and the danger of Congress giving federal regulators the power to make laws.
Some of the regulations that you spoke about, it's often Congress delegating that authority to federal agencies. And you address that in the book. And I wonder, are you concerned about overcriminalization in this country?
Yes. You raised the question about the separation of powers generally. And what happens when you start muddling the separation of powers? That's what you're getting at. And we all know it's bad when judges act as legislators. I hope we know that by now. But what happens when the executive branch acts as the legislator? That's what you're talking about. Legislation's supposed to be hard and public, made by the people's representatives. What happens when you take it out of that process, the lawmaking process, and hand it over to the executive branch, the president? You have a king. You have a king making laws. And instead of it being public, it can be done in private. And instead of it being part of a process where there has to be give and take, compromise, and minorities are protected, only one person has to be happy with the result.
Justice Gorsuch had much more to say in that interview, including insights on his faith and the inner workings of the Supreme Court. You can watch that interview right here next week on Monday's 700 Club. Pat?
Well, we're going to look forward to hearing it because he's also talked about the overcriminalization of America and we have discovered there are several 100,000 laws that have been passed by executive agencies that have criminal sanctions. And so there are people in jail who shouldn't be there because of federal agencies that have put them there. And we're a nation of criminals because of this, and I believe the justice will address that on this very important interview he has with our reporter.